This is your story.
Take a moment and ask yourself this. Where do you rank on the list of priorities in your own life? Some people live as if their sole purpose is to please others. They try to be there for everyone, make everyone smile, show endless understanding. But if you made a list of who they truly need to take care of in their lives, they would always come last. From the outside, these people often seem cheerful, easygoing, like everything is just fine. But underneath that surface, there's often a growing emptiness, suppressed anger, a deep fatigue that over time can even turn into physical illness. Because someone who always says yes has often learned to say no to their own pain. The deepest motivation for these people is to be loved and accepted, but that love does not come freely. It comes with conditions. So they shape their opinions, emotions, even their entire posture to fit the person in front of them, whoever they want love from in that moment. They speak in a way that person would like. They make decisions that person would approve of, and they stay silent when that person wouldn't want to hear the truth. What they think doesn't matter. What the other person wants to hear does. What they need doesn't take priority. What the other person expects does. And over time, that flexibility becomes something else entirely, a kind of quiet erasure of the self. They begin to lose their boundaries. Because every time they say, as long as they're happy, they push themselves a little further into the background. Okay? Psychologist Carl Rogers once said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." But these people don't accept themselves. They accept other people's expectations. So they don't grow, they just adapt. And for a person to truly grow, they must first say yes to their own existence. But these individuals are so desperate for others' approval that they end up silencing their own inner voice. For people conditioned to please, conflict feels like the biggest threat. Arguments, raised voices, tension, these aren't just uncomfortable for them. They feel existential. So they become the ones who always clean up the emotional mess. They soften the conflict, lower their voice, smooth things over. Even when the other person crosses a line, even when they're insulted, they stay silent. Because the voice inside them keeps saying, let's not make this worse. Let's not start a fight. And the issue isn't about who's right or wrong. The real issue is the intense anxiety they feel in moments of tension. Their bodies go into full alarm mode. Their nervous system switches to fight or flight, but they can't fight. They can't run either. So they freeze, and once again, they're the ones who fix everything. Just like everyone else, you have your own opinions about life, your own preferences, your own choices, your own decisions. But being able to own them depends on how someone else sees them. Let's say you bought a piece of clothing. In that moment, you truly liked it. You picked it with confidence and joy. But then one person says they don't like it, and suddenly it hits you. It feels like their opinion is more valid than your choice. You might even put it away, never to wear it again on the very same day you bought it. The same thing happens with your ideas. You have a thought, a clear stance that feels right to you. But do you know when it finally makes sense to you? Only when someone else agrees with it. You don't trust that you could be right on your own. You only breathe easy when someone says, yeah, you're right. And then comes the relief. Oh, so I did make the right call. But if you only claim a thought when someone else supports it, then maybe, just maybe, you've built your life around the need for approval, and you've been conditioned to please. Boundaries are actually one of the most protective things a person can have. But for someone conditioned to please, setting boundaries feels rude. Creating space, saying no, feels like starting a conflict. And that fear pushes them to constantly pretend everything is fine. Your chest tightens, right? Someone crosses a line with you, and you notice it. Sometimes your body even reacts. Your stomach knots. Your throat tightens. But still, you stay quiet. Because speaking up might make you look weak or too sensitive. So you deny your own boundaries. You act like nothing happened, as if nothing hurt, okay? And over time, this silence becomes a role you play, like those overly attentive staff at hotels or restaurants. You become that person for others, anticipating every need, ensuring everyone's comfort, but you pay the price. From the outside, it looks like kindness. On the inside, it feels like you're whipping yourself to keep others warm. You know, that invisible list of people to care for. Your name is always at the very bottom. And one day, you realize you've been there for everyone, but you've never truly shown up for yourself.
Don't forget to subscribe.
You probably remember the movie Yes Man. Think about that scene where Carl is trying to say yes to everyone around him. He's drowning under the weight of endless obligations. His personal boundaries are completely gone. He's so exhausted, his health starts to break down. There's even that moment, middle of the night, someone randomly asks him for something and he just can't say no. That's the purest definition of a people pleaser. And in that scene, behind his fake smile, you finally start to see the collapse happening inside him. In real life, this is exactly what happens to people conditioned to please. They can't say no. No matter what the other person asks for, time, energy, emotional, labor, they say yes just to avoid conflict, just to keep the peace. And sometimes the request is clearly harmful to them, but they say yes anyway, because if they don't, they feel guilty. Not just uncomfortable, guilty, as if saying no makes them a bad person. As if not fulfilling someone else's request equals failure. And this guilt, it doesn't just come and go. It settles. It becomes part of who they are. Even when no one's asking anything, they create internal pressure. What if someone asks and I can't follow through? So in the end, this isn't about being polite. It's about being unable to protect your own boundaries. So why do people act this way? Why do they always put themselves second? Why can't they say no? Why do they feel the need to please everyone? The answer lies in the quietest corners of childhood. At a young age, the one thing a child needs most is love. But in some households, love isn't given unconditionally. It's treated like a reward. You get it only if you're well behaved, only if you act the way your mother wants you to, only if you don't upset your father, only if you go along with everyone else. Psychotherapist Alice Miller puts it this way: a child who is ready to give up their true self in order to gain love will often carry that sacrifice for a lifetime. And what does the child learn to be loved? I can't be myself. I have to become what others want me to be. Years go by. The body grows up, but the internal system stays the same. As an adult, you no longer need that rule. But your mind still runs the old software. So you keep behaving like a loyal employee of that outdated system, trying to make people like you, just like you once tried to keep your parents happy. And that's when a kind of prophecy kicks in. You end up teaching people that they can only love you when you're pleasing them. Not because they are bad people, but because that's the pattern you have shown them. And so you begin living out the same story again and again. The same old loop, now disguised as adulthood. Another reason is the tendency to avoid conflict and tension. Because for some people, an argument isn't just a difference of opinion. It feels like a threat carried over from the past. To this point, trauma expert Bessel van der Kolk offers a crucial insight. Trauma is not just what happens to us, it's what lives on in our bodies. For people who constantly avoid tension, every conflict feels like a potential danger. Maybe once, when they raised their voices, they were actually punished. So now, in the name of creating a safe space, they choose to violate their own boundaries. And that choice, over time, becomes a habit, then a part of their identity. If a child grows up in a home full of arguments, yelling, even violence, some children are so deeply affected by that atmosphere that even as adults, they can't tolerate a hint of tension. Some learn to deal with it, but others grow to hate conflict entirely, and that emotional reaction eventually becomes a personality trait. You become afraid to disagree, okay? Because deep down, your mind is wired with this belief. If I speak up, it will lead to conflict. If there's conflict, I won't be able to handle it. So your inner voice quickly steps in. Let's not stir things up. I'll just go along with it. I'll keep the peace. But this strategy has a price. In the long run, you end up violating your own rights. You erase your own boundaries just to give someone else a more comfortable experience, right? Trauma therapist Janina Fisher puts it this way: the defense strategies we learn in childhood don't protect us in adulthood. They become invisible barriers instead. You think you're keeping yourself safe, but deep down, you're abandoning yourself. And perhaps the deepest reason of all is the fear of loneliness. Because for some people, saying no isn't just a rejection, it's a risk. If I push back, they won't love me anymore. If I act on my own needs, they'll shut me out. If I protect my boundaries, they'll leave me. Okay? These thoughts are rarely spoken out loud, but the mind remembers those old fears all too well. You think 1,000 times before saying anything. You distance yourself from your own desires, just so others won't distance themselves from you. You turn your back on yourself just to avoid someone else turning their back on you. And in the end, you find yourself completely alone in a crowd. Because even the people who love you, they love the version of you that resembles them, not the one that is truly, fully you, right? Psychologist John Bowlby describes the root of attachment fear like this. Our attachment system develops mental alarm mechanisms against the risk of exclusion. When those alarms are triggered, a person may abandon their own reality in order to avoid rejection. So in trying not to be alone, you run the risk of losing yourself. But don't forget this. Real connection only happens with the people who stay when you are yourself. Everything else is just social noise, okay? So is it possible to break out of this cycle? But first, you need to accept this. The inability to say no is not a flaw. It's a habit. And like any habit, it can be changed. The very first and most important step is to rebuild your yes-no balance. If someone asks you for something and you immediately feel that pressure to say yes, you don't have to respond right away. Not in that moment. Putting a little distance between you and the request breaks the autopilot. That distance might be an hour, a day, or even just one deep breath. I can't decide right now. I'll let you know tomorrow. I'd prefer to answer this in writing. These simple phrases become your new boundary walls. Not to shut people out, but to protect yourself. Because the moment you answer too quickly, that old yes program kicks in. And once again, you find yourself agreeing to things you don't actually want. But when you create space, you create clarity. And in that space, your ability to think, feel, and decide begins to grow. Let's be honest. Saying no isn't easy for everyone. Some people are pushy, some are emotionally clingy, and face-to-face conversations can become a trap for manipulation. That's why, especially in the beginning, written communication can be your lifeline. A text, an email, even a short note can help you deliver your note with clarity and calm. And surprisingly, people start to respect that. They might react at first, but over time they value you more. Because now you've started to value yourself, okay?
Don't forget to subscribe.
Maybe you've made a lot of sacrifices up until now. You told yourself, it's no big deal. I don't want to be rude. So you gave parts of yourself away. You pushed past your own limits. You gave certain people special treatment. And over time, those special favors started to feel like obligations. As if once you gave something, you could never take it back. But that's not true. People are allowed to change their minds. Needs change. Feelings change. Boundaries evolve. This isn't about breaking promises. It's about being honest with yourself. And you deserve that honesty just as much as anyone else. So one day, you should be able to say, I don't want to do this anymore. I need to protect this boundary. I am not going to continue with this behavior just because you once said yes. Doesn't mean you have to keep saying yes forever. If you feel deep down, that's enough for me. You have every right to say it, okay? And that doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you someone who is alive, someone who is growing, someone who is starting to take their own emotions seriously. Psychologist Brené Brown says, daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves even when we risk disappointing others. So when you set a boundary with someone, it doesn't mean you don't care about them. It means you care about both of you, and you're inviting the relationship to be healthier for everyone involved. For people who are used to pleasing others, conflict feels like a disaster waiting to happen. In their minds, it sounds like this. If we argue, the relationship will end. If there's tension, I won't be loved anymore. But conflict, when it doesn't involve insults, when it's not about putting someone down or overpowering them, is actually what helps a relationship grow, because arguing, confronting, and facing things together allows two people to truly see each other. That's where you learn each other's boundaries. That's where real faces show up. In the moments of tension, not just in the calm, without these tough conversations. The relationship becomes fragile, like words written in water, like a pleasant friendship that has never faced a hard day, never been tested. But maybe it is fragile not because it's pure, but because you've always been the one cushioning everything, wrapping the whole thing in softness, so it wouldn't break. Real intimacy begins the moment you stop fearing conflict. And yes, bringing up hard topics can feel terrifying, but think of it like jumping into cold water. You shiver at first, but then you start to swim. And the most beautiful part, you finally see who stays and who was only there when you were quiet. Because if someone leaves just because you brought up something that relationship only survived because you kept suppressing yourself. And when you finally start showing up as a real person, the masks fall away and what's left is truth. Psychotherapist Esther Perel puts it this way: true intimacy is not just built on joy and harmony, but also on tension and repair. So let conflict exist. Don't be afraid to speak, because the more you stay silent, the farther away you drift. And the more you speak, the stronger you become. No matter how hard you try, some people just won't like you. And it has nothing to do with how kind you are or how much effort you've put in. Sometimes it's your smile, the way you enjoy your life, a healthy relationship, a quiet sense of peace. That alone is enough to disturb some people. And deep down, you might ask yourself, but why? Because, you haven't done anything wrong. But remember this, there's a kind of anger in the world, a quiet bitterness, jealousy, restlessness, and all of that needs somewhere to go. Sometimes it lands on you. When you finally accept that, you begin to realize something. All that effort, the desire to keep everyone pleased, is not only pointless, it's exhausting. The more places you try to be at once, the more places you end up missing. And wherever you fall short, you end up neglecting yourself the most. Your feelings, your needs, your boundaries. So let me ask you this. Do the people you're trying so hard to please actually value you? Or are they just used to having you around? Have they come to treat your endless effort, your constant support, your kindness as something automatic, like it costs you nothing? Don't forget, just because you have a lot to give doesn't mean you have to give it to everyone. The more you give something away freely, the quicker it loses its meaning. Your time, your care, your love, they're beautiful, but they only gain value in the hands of those who truly see their worth. True fulfillment doesn't come from being everywhere for everyone. It comes from giving what's sacred to the right people in the right amount, okay? Sometimes you feel like you have to do something because it's familiar, because in that moment, it feels like there's no other option, but somewhere deep inside, there's a quiet signal. Your stomach tightens, your throat closes up, your chest feels heavy, or you just feel an unnamed discomfort. That's your alarm. Your body is trying to tell you, stop, take a moment. Do you really want to do this? Most of the time, we slip into autopilot without realizing it. We say yes. We move forward, we push ourselves, but if you just give it a day, just one day, that autopilot breaks. And in that pause, you reconnect with your body, your mind, your true intention. And if after that day, you still want to go ahead, then do it. But that time and space will help you hear your real decision. Because some choices only emerge in silence. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not to say yes right away. A single breath of distance can protect you from yourself. Psychologist Peter Levine once said, "The body whispers the truths we cannot put into words. When we learn to listen, healing begins." So please, if something inside you says no, don't argue with your body. Take a day, then decide that one day might save you from a regret that could last for years. People who are conditioned to please others always ask the same questions. Will they love me? Will they value me? But think about it. Isn't that such a passive way to live? This is your life. A relationship is something you welcome into your heart. And yet you're thinking about it like you're begging for love. Why aren't you asking instead, will I love them? Will I value them? What will this relationship add to my life, to our life? Those are the questions that pull you out of passivity. They put you back at the center. They redirect you towards yourself. And that's when everything shifts. That's when you stop being someone who's waiting to be chosen. And you become someone who chooses, someone who sets boundaries, someone who protects themselves. But if you continue to live in this mindset of pleasing, it's like constantly wearing shoes that are too small, uncomfortable, constricting, painful, and yet you stay silent about it. And the longer you live this way, the more rigid it becomes. At 40, 50, 70, you're still trying to walk in someone else's footsteps. But don't forget, change may be hard, but it is never impossible. There's no such thing as being too old to be yourself. It just takes courage. Will there be tension? Yes. Arguments? Absolutely. But let them leave, because the ones who stay, they're the ones who truly belong in your life. And one day, if you can stand tall and say, this is me, this is who I am, then on that day, you're no longer just a people pleaser. You're finally free. Thank you for listening, beautiful soul. The comment section is your space. I'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections. And if you'd like to join me for the next video, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Until we meet again, take good care of yourself.